Hello and welcome to the Critically Clueless. Today we are in Crusader Kings 3 and we are covering a new subject that we haven't really covered too much on the channel so far, and that's marriage. With marriage, we're also going to talk about children as well and just what goes into that, or things that we should kind of have an eye on. So yes, that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to try and make this again as short as possible. Like I said before, Crusader Kings videos tend to be a little bit on the lengthy side, so if it does run that way, I do apologise. And of course, if you're interested in more Crusader Kings videos, we are trying to cover the whole game as a whole, so don't be afraid to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and of course comment down below what you would like to see covered with this game, because there is a lot to this game. So first of all, we are going to be talking about marriage. Now, I've chosen this playthrough not because I have generations after generations into this bloodline, but because I thought that what I wanted to talk about was better shown in this rather than another save where I'm already a mighty empire. I think I'm like 8 generations in, but I think I've done a better job when it comes to marriage and children in this playthrough, which is why we are here. I am playing as Alfred. This is actually my first life. This is the first generation. I think we've been playing this this playthrough for almost 50 years now, and in those very short years we've managed to do quite a few things. Now, the first thing you can do with marriage is, of course, alliances. And depending on your situation, depending on what country you've picked, alliances may be the very place you need to start when it comes to marriages. So what we're going to do, we're going to go and hit find a spouse. And what find a spouse will do will be, it will look around the entire world for suitable candidates. And of course, you can change certain options. So if you would like, for instance, everything to stay in your name, what you're really going to be wanting to hit is matrimonial marriage. That means that any inheritance, any children, any titles, it all comes down under your name, under your dynasty. But if you're not looking for that, if you're just looking for instance, an alliance, the best, the strongest alliance you can do, you can filter it so that way we have alliance power, and it will automatically give us the best matchup. And for us right now, we're looking at the Byzantine Empire. As you can see, if we was to click that, it's acceptable, and we'd gain an extremely powerful ally from making this marriage work for us. Quite often or not, I find that I need to get myself an alliance as early as possible, just so that way I have a hope of actually taking over some land very early on. So if you're looking to, expand your empire, be it, starting off as a tiny little duchy or even smaller, then an alliance can really help you do that and give you those troops. However, keep in mind that wherever this alliance is, wherever you're kind of like getting these guys to join you, they're going to have to travel that way. So for instance, the Byzantine Empire, if we was to form that alliance, well, he would have to travel most of Europe in order to get me to help me. Now, it can happen. He will do it. But it will take them time to come and support me. So have a think about that again when it comes to picking who you want to ally with and why, just why you're making that alliance. Because quite honestly, having an alliance with Ireland is going to suit me a lot better. Having an alliance with Mercia immediately helps me as well. However, remember that if you do make those alliances, they are incredibly hard to break. So again, it's all about forward thinking with this game, knowing what you're going to be looking at, why you're going to be doing it, and understanding the repercussions down the road. Like, for instance, I currently have an alliance with Ireland, so moving into islands is going to be very difficult for me, at least while this alliance is actually running. Next up, I want to talk to you guys about inheritable traits. Inheritable traits are a really good way to kind of tweak the game in your favor. For instance, as I said, I picked Alfred and he already had an inheritable trait of intelligence. Intelligence is just one of the very few genetic traits in the game that can be passed down from father to son, from mother to daughter, and so on. And it's interesting because the genetic traits tend to have levels. For instance, with intelligence, I can't remember what the first line is, but if we was to manage to boost up, we'd actually become a genius, or have intelligence where it says lifestyle experience would be 30% rather than 20%. So it normally goes 10%, 20%, 30% in that order, and that goes for both positives and negative traits. And negative traits are very important to kind of think about as well. Typically, green traits or green inheritable traits are good, and the red inheritable traits are bad. However, every now and again, you can actually get something which is actually good and bad for different reasons. Let's see if I can find us a bad inheritable trait that actually has beneficial properties. We'll go for more options, and as you can see, we can filter it for inheritable traits only. There we go, and we're going to go down. There are quite a few different inheritable traits, both good and bad. All definitely need to have a good read up. When it comes to inbreeding, it's very common. I wouldn't necessarily be afraid. I'm not going to say don't do it. I can't find any of the bad inheritable traits, unfortunately. But for instance, there's a bad inheritable trait called Giant, which is actually a pretty good one, because what it would do, it would give you a prowess of 6 on the battlefield. However, it comes with a small health penalty, which is the negative inheritable trait. So what you may want to think about doing is actually introducing the Giants line, if you wanted to do so, in a little bit later, after already giving yourself something like robust, or giving yourself something which actually extends your life, before putting in another trait which will, do the opposite. So as we're talking about inheritable traits, we actually have a pretty interesting lineup here. So we have 7 children under Alfred. If we go to the first one, Lucy the First, she had no inheritable traits, even though I had one. Now, it doesn't mean that she doesn't have that trait, or doesn't have a chance of giving that trait to her children. It just becomes a background trait that can be passed on. If we go to our second child, again, he was unlucky again, didn't have that inheritable trait from me. It is normally around 50-50, so if I have a trait and my partner doesn't have a trait, you have around 50% chance of actually passing that on. But if we go to our third child, Lucy the Second, as you can see, not only did she get my trait, be it a lesser version of it, but she also got a beautiful trait as well, which adds to her fertility. And if we look, she actually got that from her mum. We got married, had a child. She was already pretty. She had attraction of 20, a fertility of 20. She got pretty. She passed on the lesser trait to her daughter. If we check that, there we go. And also with the quick, we also got the level 1 trait with that as well from me. So you can see the inheritable traits are passed down from both sides. And of course, now her children are more likely to pass them on again, and so on. So when it comes to breeding your bloodline, getting all of those good inheritable traits, you can do it. You can definitely do more than one trait. In fact, we actually have a really good one to show you as well. If we go all the way back and we go to our fourth child, now she has pretty. So she has fertility plus 20, and we also paired her with someone who had exactly the same trait, fertility plus 20. And their child ended up getting the upgrade. There we go. And got beautiful, which is the level 3 positive trait from pretty, and is now fertility plus 30%. So when it comes to marriage, when it comes to children, like I said, it is about thinking advanced. Now, this is only 50 years on. We've managed to go 3 generations deep and already get these bloodlines going with these inheritable traits. So we've got a real good future ahead of us when it comes to this playthrough right now, when it comes to having an heir that is going to be able to continue our dynasty, because after all, this is a dynasty game. That's what it's all about, thinking ahead. And on top of that, we've got a few extra things that we can actually do that help our bloodline. On top of that, if you go to decisions, you can actually strengthen the bloodline. There we go. And it means that every child will have these inherited traits from generation to generation. It's quite a long list of stuff that you have to pick up. However, it's not easy to complete, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on later game to ensure that your dynasty, your bloodline stays strong and you're able to have just the most amount of stats and possibilities within your playthrough. On top of that, we also have some lifestyle choices that can really help as well. So if we look, if I remember rightly, there we go. If we go to intrigue, now first of all, I picked, which one was it? There we go. Temptation focus, which gave us the 20% fertility, because of course I can't continue my line if I can't have children. Unfortunately, not all people were created equally in this game, and having children is not guaranteed. Sometimes you have to tweak things in your favor. Like for instance, I have a son. I think it was only my second born son. I married them off. Unfortunately, they did not have children. So I'm going to have to go through the process of getting rid of the wife and getting a new one in so that side of the bloodline can continue. And again, we also got like weeds in a garden gives us an extra 30% fertility as well. So they're good things to kind of think about picking up if you want to make sure that the current player that you're playing actually can have children as well. There was nothing in there, nothing in Marshall. And another really good one, while I was here, I picked up Family Focus, which gave us the 20% extra fertility. But what we also picked up is Groomed to Rule, because with Groomed to Rule, the children get a 1 to 3 extra skill points, meaning later down the line when we go to take them over, they're going to have better stats and be able to handle the game better. Hopefully this helps our heir become bigger and better than they are. Also, something that I should mention, because it definitely doesn't cover it in the tutorial, it's something that I kind of stumbled upon, is that when you have a child, you can actually change their learning focus before you take control of them. Now, normally when you take control of somebody that isn't of age yet, you can actually choose which place you would like them to focus in when it comes to learning. You don't actually have the lifestyle tree open just yet, but what you can do while still playing as your character, I've just had this daughter, as you can see, she's 2 years old. If I hold my left trigger to bring up the character reticule, I can choose education on them, and then I can choose where I want them to focus. Personally, I think learning is always a good one to pick, unless you're going to be wanting to play them as kind of a martial character. And then that's done. Now they're going to be focusing on learning before I ever even get to them. if I ever play as them. But it's going to be influencing their stats as they go on into adulthood. So that's a good tip. Hopefully you guys didn't know about that and it's helped you. Like I said, I kind of just stumbled upon it. It was something that I didn't even realize you could do, to be fair. But guys, I think that's it. I think I've covered everything, or I've covered enough to kind of help you guys dip your fingers into marriage, alliances, children, inheritance. And don't forget as well that when it comes to marriages, in spouse, you do have more options than just what I said. If you want prestige game, for instance, you can pick for, filter it so that way you can marry into someone that's going to give you the best prestige game. Prestige, very important in this game. So I figured I'd quickly mention that just as I didn't earlier. But yeah, have a look through those filters because there's lots there that you can kind of make sure you get the people that you actually want. Also, I completely forgot to actually mention about your dynasty. Now, if you play this game enough and get into the game enough, you end up getting something which is called like dynasty points. The bigger your dynasty, your family, your legacy, the more points you'll have to spend. Eventually, you'll get your first 1,000 points and you'll be able to purchase a special perk for your entire family. Now, I mention this because, as you can see, we actually have a perk which is directly related to your bloodline. And that one, for instance, you got an extra 30% for inheritable traits. If you go all the way to the very end of that tree, getting every single perk, you can actually get an extra 5 years on your bloodline as well. So it could be worth investing. It's going to take a lot of time, obviously, to do this. However, this is definitely the long game. So just keep that in mind. But guys, I think that's the end of this video. I think we covered everything we can possibly cover on marriage, on children, and that kind of jazz. So hopefully you guys learned something. If you have, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. And we do actually have an active and growing Discord. So if you made it to the end of this, maybe you want to keep flying with a discussion, the link for that will be down in the description. It'd be nice to have more people on board. And of course, as ever, if you have any more questions, anything that I didn't give you the answer to, pop that down in the comments and I'll do my very best to reply to each and every comment. But until next time, I've been a monk and we've been Critically Clueless, and I'll see you in the next video real soon. Until then, take it easy, and of course, happy gaming.